Well, 41 states, including Tennessee, are now at risk of losing their SNAP benefits if they don't get their error rates in check. Those are the percentage of food assistance dollars distributed where people either got too much money or not enough. Last year's error rate average across the nation was about 10%. But one part of President Trump's big, beautiful bill, which went into effect on July 4th of this year, says that states must keep their error rates below 6%. And if that rate isn't caught by October 1st of 2027, recipients could lose out on the assistance completely. And that would mean that over 500,000 people in Tennessee would no longer have access to the critical assistance. That's according to the most recent report from the state's Department of Human Services, which was published in May. The county with the most people getting SNAP is Shelby, with around 130,000 recipients, but Davidson County is in second place with over 50,000 getting help paying for their groceries.
Well, Mayor Freddie O'Connell is now joining more than 200 other mayors. This is from all over the country right now, who are calling on Congress to take action to preserve federal food assistance.
Yeah, the mayors are asking Congress to undo the Trump administration's cuts to SNAP. In the bipartisan letter, the mayors say that our country is, quote, on the front lines of a deepening food security crisis. They say we should be working to expand opportunity in food security and not create new barriers to assistance. The cuts were part of President Trump's spending plan, which aimed to cut federal spending. The mayor of Knoxville and Memphis also signed off on the letter. 3 Kentucky mayors were also listed. Kentucky lawmakers say more than 40,000 people in the Commonwealth have been kicked off of SNAP since the president's spending bill passed.